the glass that stands between life and death. It's in your car windshield, your phone screen, and even skyscraper windows. Today, you could look at two pieces of glass that appear identical. But watch what happens when I strike this one versus this one. One becomes a weapon that can slice through skin and muscle. The other can withstand the combined weight of 3 adult elephants concentrated on a surface the size of a quarter. Every single year, factories around the world transform over 300 million square meters of ordinary glass into this virtually indestructible material. That's equivalent to covering 9,000 football fields with transparent armor. The secret lies in a precisely controlled process that increases the glass strength from 6,000 pounds per square inch to an incredible 24,000 psi. That's 5 times stronger than the original material. But here's what most people don't know. There's exactly one moment during manufacturing, lasting just 3 seconds, that determines whether this transformation succeeds or fails catastrophically. This process protects millions of lives every day. In your car, your home, and even the device you're watching this on right now. Today, we're going inside the furnaces, past the safety barriers, to reveal exactly how ordinary glass becomes extraordinary. You can't just throw any glass into the furnace. One microscopic flaw will create an explosion. Every sheet begins life as ordinary float glass. Giant panels stretching longer than a bus, sliding across conveyor belts, shimmering like liquid mirrors. To the naked eye, they look flawless. But the truth is, not all glass is worthy of becoming tempered. Before it can enter the fiery furnace, it must survive a brutal inspection. Technicians search for bubbles smaller than a grain of sand, for scratches invisible to human sight, for cracks thinner than a human hair. Any one of them, and the entire sheet becomes a ticking bomb. That's why every modification, cutting, shaping, drilling, must be completed before tempering begins. Once the furnace process starts, the rules are absolute. No second chances. Cutting is done with diamond-edged tools, precision drills spinning under cooling water. In some plants, robotic arms glide across the surface, shaping glass with flawless accuracy. Then comes the washing. Not a casual rinse, but a cleansing at laboratory standards. Jets of purified water and detergent blast away dust, oil residues, even a single fingerprint. Spinning brushes scrub invisible particles. Powerful air knives leave the glass spotless. Why such obsession? Because once inside a furnace running hotter than molten lead, heat will amplify every imperfection. A bubble becomes a fault line. A scratch becomes a fracture. And when failure strikes, the sheet doesn't just break. It explodes. That is why detection systems are relentless. Laser scanners sweep every millimeter. Ultrasonic sensors probe for cracks hidden deep within. High-resolution cameras magnify flaws beyond human sight. The goal is simple: eliminate every weakness before the glass meets fire. Yet the rules of tempered glass remain unforgiving. Once the process is complete, the glass can never be changed again. Try to cut it, try to drill it, and the entire sheet releases its hidden tension in an instant. In demonstrations, a drill bit touches the surface, and the glass erupts into a cloud of blunt, harmless cubes. Safe to touch, but utterly destroyed for construction. This is why selection and preparation aren't just the beginning. They are the foundation of tempered glass. Only the purest, cleanest, most perfectly shaped sheets will survive the journey into the inferno. But here's what happens if you try to drill it after the process. This is the moment that seals the glass's fate forever. Why can't tempered glass be modified after production? The answer lies in its very nature. Once tempered, the glass becomes a paradox. A paradox, incredibly strong on the surface, yet holding enormous invisible stress just beneath. Think of it as a trap, a material that appears calm and silent, but is constantly storing energy within. Imagine taking a drill and pressing it against a tempered panel. The instant the bit begins to cut, the balance collapses. What was once stable suddenly unravels. In a fraction of a second, the entire sheet explodes into thousands of tiny fragments. Slow-motion cameras capture this phenomenon in breathtaking detail. From the outside, nothing appears wrong. A smooth surface, a quiet hum of machinery. But then, the first crack appears. And in that instant, a chain reaction races through the glass. Energy that has been trapped for hours, days, even years, is released in the blink of an eye. Animations reveal what the eye cannot. Layers of compressive stress grip the outer surface, while hidden tension pulls from the core. It is this invisible architecture that makes tempered glass so strong. And it is this very architecture that makes post-production changes impossible. Consider what happens if you try to cut it with a diamond saw. The blade makes contact, and within moments, the sheet disintegrates. The stored energy doesn't allow for partial damage. The glass cannot be partly broken. It can only fail completely. This rule is so absolute, factories treat it as sacred. Every modification, cutting, shaping, drilling, must be done before tempering begins. Once the process is complete, the material is locked in time, a final form that can never be touched again. To demonstrate, engineers often stage controlled break tests. A small scratch, no bigger than a pin, a minor drill attempt on one corner. And instantly, the entire pane bursts into a glittering avalanche of cubes. At first glance, this might seem like a weakness. Why would a material so fragile in this way be trusted in cars, buildings, and homes? The answer lies in safety. Those tiny cubes are blunt. They lack the razor-sharp edges of ordinary glass shards. They won't slice through skin, muscle, point, or arteries. This controlled fragility is, in fact, a triumph of design. Tempered glass cannot be altered once it's finished, but that same property ensures that when it fails safely. Think about the implications. A car accident, a sudden impact against a shower door, or even a building window struck by debris. Instead of life-threatening blades, the glass becomes thousands of harmless pebbles. And yet, this benefit carries a cost. Once tempered, the glass has reached the point of no return. Its fate is sealed forever. And that fate is about to be tested. Now watch what happens when we heat this glass to temperatures that would melt copper. Inside this tunnel, glass enters as a solid and exits as something completely different. The heart of the tempering process is the furnace, a glowing tunnel that stretches the length of a train car, filled with an invisible river of heat. Sheets of glass ride into this tunnel on conveyor rollers made of ceramic. Not ordinary rollers, but cylinders engineered to withstand temperatures hotter than molten lead. Each roller turns slowly, carefully, carrying massive panes forward, centimeter by centimeter, into the fire. At precisely 1,150 degrees Fahrenheit, that's over 620 degrees Celsius, the glass reaches its softening point. Here it doesn't melt, but something far stranger happens. Its molecular bonds loosen, just enough for invisible forces to reshape them. Precision is everything. Too hot by just a few degrees, and the sheet begins to warp like liquid. Too cool, and the surface hardens too soon, locking in stress that will shatter the panel instantly. That's why engineers guard this process with armies of sensors. Infrared cameras scan each sheet, period, measuring the glow of every square inch. Digital thermometers feed data into control systems. Air pressure in the furnace is regulated to prevent drafts. Every variable, dot, every fraction of a degree point must be held in perfect balance. From the outside, the sight is mesmerizing. Giant panes glowing orange-red, sliding silently through a tunnel of fire. They look unchanged, as if nothing is happening. But deep inside, the glass is approaching a critical moment. Consider what happens to the molecules themselves. At room temperature, the structure of glass is frozen chaos. Atoms trapped in a rigid but irregular network. When heated to 1100 degrees, that network loosens. The atoms begin to vibrate, shifting into positions they could never reach before. It is a microscopic ballet, unseen but essential. Every moment inside this furnace is timed to perfection. Engineers calculate exactly how long each pane must remain in the inferno. Too short, and the core remains cold, unprepared for tempering. Too long, and the glass may sag, bending under its own softened weight. The rollers themselves are part of the precision. If they turn unevenly, the sheet can distort. If they vibrate, faint ripples will scar the surface forever. Some furnaces use hundreds of rollers in a row, each one aligned to a fraction of a millimeter. To walk beside this tunnel is to feel waves of heat radiating through heavy insulation. Steam rises from vents. Metal rattles as burners roar to life, keeping the inferno at constant temperature. Operators wear reflective suits, helmets, and thick gloves just to approach the machinery. But why exactly 1150 degrees? Because this is the threshold, the temperature at which glass becomes soft enough to transform, 0.5 degrees Celsius, yet strong enough not to collapse. Below this point, the molecular structure resists. Above it, the material risks losing its shape entirely. Quality control does not end at the furnace door. Every sheet is tracked by computer. Data logs record heating times, roller speeds, and sensor readings. If a single variable falls outside tolerance, period, the sheet is rejected before tempering continues. In this way, the furnace becomes more than just a tunnel of fire. It is a crucible, a place where ordinary float glass is prepared, molecule by molecule, for the final transformation. What emerges at the far end looks deceptively unchanged. A glowing sheet slides into open air, its surface still flawless, its shape intact. But within the glass, the bonds are in motion, the molecules still shifting, the structure still unstable. The real magic has yet to begin. In just moments, the sheet will leave the furnace and meet a storm of freezing air. A 3-second battle that will decide its destiny. But that battle comes next. This is the moment that turns ordinary glass into a material stronger than some metals. The furnace has done its work. The glass is glowing, soft at the molecular level, yet perfectly shaped. Now it meets its greatest trial, the 3-second transformation known as quenching. As each sheet exits the fire, it is immediately assaulted by an invisible storm. Banks of high-pressure air nozzles surround the panel, blasting it with icy winds from all directions. In less than a heartbeat, the outer surface of the glass begins to cool. It locks into place, freezing in a state of compression. But the core remains hot, still glowing from the furnace. It cools more slowly, and as it contracts, it pulls inward. This is the secret. A stress sandwich forms, the outer layers squeezing in compression, the inner core stretching in tension. Animations reveal what the eye cannot. Blue zones of compression hugging the surface, red zones of tension locked within. Two opposing forces, frozen in balance. This balance is what gives tempered glass its extraordinary strength. Strike it with a hammer, and the surface resists, distributing the impact across its compressed skin. But if a flaw breaches that outer layer, the hidden tension is unleashed. That is why tempered glass never cracks slowly. It either holds or it shatters completely. Slow-motion footage shows red-hot glass meeting the cold blast. In a fraction of a second, crystals freeze across the surface, like ice forming on a winter pond. The interior lags behind, a living core still in motion. The process is violent, yet exquisitely controlled. Engineers adjust nozzle patterns, air pressure, dot, and timing with surgical precision. Even the spacing of nozzles can make the difference between success and catastrophic failure. To understand why, imagine baking bread. The crust hardens first, while the center stays soft and expands. Tempered glass is the same, but reversed. The crust is locked in compression, dot, while the core is frozen in tension. Compare this with ordinary glass. Strike a regular pane, and cracks spread like lightning, jagged and deadly. But strike tempered glass, and the force dissipates. When it does fail, it breaks into thousands of harmless cubes. This is why tempered glass can hold pressures that would buckle steel of the same thickness. It is why car windows can withstand impacts, why skyscrapers endure hurricane winds, and why your phone screen survives falls that would destroy ordinary glass. And all of it depends on a window of just 3 seconds. 3 seconds where fire meets air, where balance is frozen into place, and where glass becomes something extraordinary. But how do we prove this glass can really handle 24,000 psi? This 100-pound bag of lead shot will reveal if the process worked perfectly. Tempered glass may look complete as it leaves the furnace, but its journey is not over. Before it can be trusted in cars, buildings, or the device in your pocket, it must face a gauntlet of brutal tests. Inside specialized laboratories, sheets are mounted on heavy steel frames. Every variable is controlled: temperature, humidity, alignment. And then comes the pendulum test. A massive weight, 100 pounds of solid lead shot, swings forward like a wrecking ball. It slams into the center of the glass with devastating force. If the process worked, the glass holds. If not, it shatters instantly. This pendulum test is divided into categories. Category 1 requires the glass to withstand impacts that simulate everyday accidents. A child pushing against a shower door, or an elbow striking a car window. Category 2 is far more severe. It recreates disasters, objects falling from scaffolding, or hurricane debris striking a skyscraper window. The glass is judged not only on whether it survives the blow, but on how it fails if it does break. Because in safety engineering, total failure can still be success. When tempered glass shatters, it must disintegrate into thousands of tiny, blunt-edged cubes. Engineers collect the fragments, weigh them, and measure their distribution. If the cubes are too large, the sheet fails the test. If sharp shards appear, the sheet is disqualified immediately. Standards are unforgiving. In Europe, tempered glass is governed by EN 12150. In the United States, by ANSIZ 97.1. Each regulation sets precise criteria for impact resistance, fragment size, dot, and safety margins. Only glass that meets these benchmarks can be sold for architectural or automotive use. In one demonstration, a pane is struck by the pendulum again and again. The surface flexes, the impact echoes like a drum, but the glass remains intact. The audience holds its breath. Finally, after the final blow, the sheet shatters into a glittering cascade of safe fragments. This is the paradox of tempered glass. It is tested to destruction not to prove that it will never break, but to prove that when it does, it breaks in the safest possible way. The importance of these tests is everywhere around us. In cars, side windows must protect passengers during accidents, yet break quickly if rescuers need to pull someone out. In bathrooms, shower doors must survive repeated daily use, but shatter safely if struck by a sudden fall. In skyscrapers, entire facades of tempered glass face storms, winds, and even the occasional bird strike. Even your smartphone screen is a product of this testing culture. It may not face wrecking balls or pendulums, but it does face the modern equivalent being dropped on concrete. Tempered and chemically strengthened glass ensures that in most cases, your device survives. Consider the alternative. Without these tests, without these safety standards, a car crash could fill the cabin with knives of glass. A shower accident could lead to catastrophic injuries. A skyscraper could rain deadly shards onto the streets below. That is why the tests matter. They are not rituals. They are guarantees. Proof that every sheet of tempered glass we live with daily, from the windshield of a bus to the door of a shower, has already survived its trial by fire and impact. Born in flame, shaped by pressure, tested to destruction. This is tempered glass, dot, fragile in appearance, yet an invisible shield protecting billions of lives every single day. And now, you know its secret. That is why the tests matter. They are not rituals. They are guarantees. Proof that every sheet of tempered glass we live with daily, from the windshield of a bus to the door of a shower, has already survived its trial by fire and impact. Born in flame, shaped by pressure, tested to destruction. This is tempered glass, dot, fragile in appearance, yet an invisible shield protecting billions of lives every single day. And now, you know its secret.